So we continue on with Stripes and Links. We're at the 54th page, and Sabrina and her mom her mom Endora are still talking things out, trying to understand exactly what, happened and how Endora is handling it. And I think this page is really, really good because what it does is it kind of acknowledges, the possibility that Zig Zag's actions unintentionally may have caused a rift between her and Endora, but not totally. Basically, like, there's still a friendship there. It's just that what happened kind of, I guess you could say, put a dent in that friendship very slightly because, of what Zig Zag did to her by kissing her on the lips. But you also have to remember she was buzzed and everything. She had a little too much more than Endora. Now, what's interesting, though, is, Endora explaining why she had been friends with Zig Zag for so long. Because even Sabrina's like, I don't understand how you guys have been friends for as long as you have. You both seem so different. And Endora says that's what she appreciates about Zig Zag. The fact that Zig Zag didn't treat her as how others treated her. Because the way she looks at it, others treated her as a mother and a wife. Zig Zag was one of the first, if not the first, to say, hey, you're one of the girls. You're not just a mom, you're not just a wife, you're one of the girls. And you need to let loose a little bit. And that's what happened. Her hanging out with Zig Zag allowed her to be a little bit more loose, just be one of the girls. I mean, even Endora says that, Zig Zag talked to her sometimes. They would just, talk to her about some off-color subjects and things, as well as encouraged her to have more fun, be more flirty and silly when need be, and that if she... and that if she did kind of say the wrong things, Zig Zag would call her out on it, but she wouldn't be angry or judgmental about it. She would just call her out and I guess kind of correct her and say, hey, don't say that, please. You don't understand, the situation or this or that. And I like the thought bubble that Sabrina has, because when her mom tells her that, Zig Zag would call her out on things when she was wrong, but not be angry or judgmental like others would be towards her, you have this thought process, and, coming from Sabrina being like, I feel targeted here, because basically with that thought bubble, I should say, coming from Sabrina and her saying she feels targeted when her mom's telling her that Zig Zag would get angry, would call her out on stuff when she's wrong, but not be angry or judgmental like others would be, Sabrina having that thought process of, I feel targeted here, basically she feels that what her mom is saying by, mentioning that is that her mom is kind of, I wouldn't say full on telling her, but just kind of alluding to the fact that, at times, Sabrina, you can be judgmental as well towards me as well as get angry, and you should be more like Zig Zag. Just be calm about it. Just be like, hey, easy, you're wrong about that, and let me explain why. So I like the page so far. I like what we're getting here with Endora. I really do. I mean, she's basically, just, telling it like it is. Sabrina wanted answers, and she's getting it. She's getting those answers and everything. And, she even says at the end, or she even mentions to Sabrina, she even asks her at the end in the final panel, she says, I don't know if you've noticed, but sometimes I can act in a somewhat insensitive way. And then Sabrina's answer is, Mom, we just talked about how becoming more tolerant was bothering you. I've noticed. So overall, I do like this page so far, and the continuation of the discussion, because she's just letting it come out. She's just saying, look, the reason me and Zig Zag have been friends for so long, especially ever since after you got married to Richard RC, is because she doesn't treat me like a mom or a wife. She treats me like a friend, like one of the girls. Like, I could go out with her and maybe some of her colleagues and just have some good, silly, flirty fun, or some just silly fun and have a few drinks, just, let loose. So I like that explanation to where she's basically saying that, hey, sometimes, and when she does say what she does about, Zig Zag calling her out when she's wrong, but not doing it in an angry or judgmental way like others would do, and Sabrina's stop bubble being like, I feel targeted here, basically, I think that's Endora, in a way, not straight out telling Sabrina, but kind of like going, I guess you could say alluding to the fact that, unlike you or your dad or Tabitha, she just talks to me and says, very calmly as a friend, hey, you're wrong about that, and let me explain why. And that's basically, I guess, what she wants from Sabrina and Tabitha and her husband, like, hey, she doesn't want to be she doesn't want them to be angry or judgmental towards her, but to be more understanding, like, hey, we get where you're coming from, Endora, but here's why we think, you're wrong. Here's why we think you're wrong in that, perspective. So again, I like what, she's saying here. I do like this little discussion going on, and the fact that we're getting more of an idea as to why her and Zig Zag have been friends for so long, why they've been hanging out for so long, and stuff like that. So I love this, little opening up by her to Sabrina to kind of explain why she has this friendship with Zig Zag, but it's also alluded to that things may change a little bit based on what happened. Not saying it will entirely, because I think when we get done with the story in full, and Zig Zag comes back from her, her trip with Tina, with Tina Lynx, her bisexual lover. Once they come back from their trip to figure out, exactly why Zig Zag acts the way she does, try to get some answers and stuff like that, I think we will have a mending of the fences. The friendship will be a little stronger now. But there might even be, there might be something there to where Endora might be more encouraging, like, hey, if you want to kiss me on the lips, that's fine, but please ask me first and all that, and maybe we'll go from there. If you want to, basically she'll be more like, if you want to casually do that on occasions, that's fine, but make sure it's okay with me first and everything, so we can not have an incident like we did before. So I think that might be what happens. They're going to mend the fences, the friendship will be stronger, and it might, be something along the lines of where, yeah, they'll kiss on the lips a few times, but not like, full on passion and everything, but it'll be friendly peck on the lips and everything, and, there you go. There you go and everything. But yeah, I like the story so far. I like this dynamic so far with Sabrina and Endora. Again, her opening up and explaining more as to why she's been around Zig Zag and everything, and also kind of acknowledging that, yeah, things might change, may not change, I love it. I love what I'm seeing here. So overall, story's going so far has been going really, really good for over the past year, and can't wait to see what happens next, as I've said before. Obviously we're going to continue the Sabrina Endora thing next week, or later this week, whenever Eric puts out the next page. But yeah, I've enjoyed, so far so good. And when we get to Tina and Zig Zag, that's what's going to make it interesting, because basically where we left off with them is now Zig Zag is trying to figure out, should she or should she not go to the other side of her family, the one that's a little bit more not so accepting and not so loving towards her, and basically see if she can get answers there, as well as even try to reconnect with her mom and get some answers there as well. But I like it. I like the story so far. And Eric, if you're listening, you're doing a great job. Hope to see more development with the characters in these kind of stories in the future. And I still do believe we're going to get something at the end too that's going to make it a little silly, make it end on a friendly, heartwarming, comedic, end, if you will, kind of comedic, tone. And like I said before, I think what's going to happen is Endora, once they mend the fences and everything, let's say they do go in for a hug. Instead, I got a feeling Endora is going to end up kissing Zig Zag right on the lips. It's going to surprise Zig. And knowing Zig, she'll either accept it or she'll basically push off like, whoa. And I can see Endora saying like, hey, you had it coming. See, now you know how it feels. So I could see him ending it out, something like that. Again, maybe Zig Zag accepts it and, maybe even says, hey, I guess I've kind of rubbed off on you a little bit, haven't I? Even if it was accidental or not intentional. So I can see an ending like that happening. I can also see a Fur After Dark spin-off story happening featuring either Zig Zag and Tina, just having fun, getting on with each other while they stay at hotels or on the road while they're on the road trip, or they might even do something with Zig Zag and Endora, just to wrap that up, just to get that, I guess, storyline-wise out of Endora's system as well as Zig Zag's. But we'll see what happens. But you know what this also does too? Is I look at this discussion between Sabrina and Endora, and it might even, because I know Eric has said that he would never do this with Sabrina, but I think what we're getting here is maybe a possibility that Sabrina, after having this discussion with her mom and basically, finding out that connection that she has with Zig Zag and stuff like that, I can kind of see Sabrina being more open to like, hey, if you want to kiss me on the cheek as a thank you, Zig, or if I'm under the mistletoe doing a holiday and you want to kiss a holiday party at work and you want to kiss me on the lips, that's fine too. Just be friendly about it, not overexerting about it. So I could see maybe Sabrina being more accepting of those kind of things from Zig too, as a result, but we'll see. But again, I feel spin-off story-wise in Fur After Dark, we're going to get something between Zig Zag and Tina or Zig Zag and Endora. Just feel that's happening in the near future, but I could be wrong. But I like what I'm seeing. I'm enjoying it. It's really down to earth, and we're seeing a side of the characters we have not seen in a while. And here's hoping that we get more of the same, going forward. Like I said, I got a feeling we're going to continue this discussion between Sabrina and her mom in the next page. And I think by next month, we should be heading into another portion of the Zig Zag Tina thing, because next month is May, and May is associated with Mother's Day. So, I think that might be the best restarting off point for the Zig Zag and Tina portion of the story, and ending point, sub-ending point with, Endora and Sabrina at the same time. So looking forward to it, and that's all I can really say, guys. But let me know what your thoughts are overall in the comments or the live chat during the premiere. Like the video, ring the bell for notification, subscribe to the channel. Click on the links in the description to find my content elsewhere outside of YouTube. Also click on the Teespring store for merchandise you can't get anywhere else. But guys, that's all I can say for now. Let me know what your thoughts are. And until then, I am out.